Is this a situation of an artist witch hunt going too wild or an artist deceptively using AI in their process? Even after all this stuff came out, people still can't decide. So let's take a look at the situation. And again, don't send hate to any parties involved. So this all starts out with a call out and they tag Kamifuro, which is a convention held in Indonesia, basically being like, hey admin, there's an AI artist who wants to sell AI merch. Please follow up and take action in accordance with the regulations. Because in the regulations, it says don't sell products created by AI assisted generators. And they showcase some artwork made by an artist named Hagu. So then they add proof. They show a sketch of this bowl drawing. So this is the bowl drawing process. And this looks to be the reference photo by an artist by the name of Nine Clips. They show another bear artwork that was drawn in this very iconography style, and you can see the finger count doesn't match up. This one is always very interesting because, again, do humans accidentally mess up and sometimes add an extra finger, remove a digit? Absolutely. AI will also have this inconsistency. So one hand has one, two, three, four fingers, and this hand has five because the thumb is hidden. Then the person who made the call out also adds these photos. So we have this photo. I guess they're highlighting the plant specifically here. And then we have this piece where you can see up close the shoes. Hello, team Kamifuru. I'm ready to prove that my images aren't made with AI. Right on the spot if needed. No problem. I can draw live on the spot or share my working files. Thank you. So OP adds, if this one you call inspired, this is the bowl one, right? It shouldn't be said like that. This is spot on identical, just made simpler. The design and even the pose are the same. And then you write our characters. The artist Hagu adds, sorry, that's because I deleted it. When I looked at it again, it was so stiff. I'm drawing with a new character right now, and I'll post a work in progress in a few days. And another commenter basically was like, hey, you are looking a little too close to the source material. And the artist says, sorry, I won't use that design anymore. And in the future, I won't take designs or poses that are too similar. And they added that they DM'd the artist already to apologize. So OP then points out the shoes, writing, dude, it's not about whether you can draw or not. There are people who can draw but use AI. This photo is from your Instagram, and it's clearly 100% AI. You can tell from the shoelace, the red line, and the sole underneath. So these are the shoes. Put a pin in it because there will be more people later on that will analyze this. And the artist says, sorry, I just suck at drawing shoes. It's really me who struggles. I took references from Google of Nike and Adidas shoes and retraced them like that. So going more into the shoes, two reference links were provided, one that's no longer available. So we only have one of the shoes to reference. So this is the vector shoe that is allegedly the reference photo for, I guess, one of the foots. So another person adds, here's an error that only AI could make. As skilled as the human is with the issue, it's impossible for them to create a pattern, design, or render that's different. Check the left image. The difference in the reference for each leg, the reference is still way different from the final result. I more believe he used a different reference earlier to feed the AI. So here we have the Google translation for it, unfortunately, because it is in Indonesian, right? Like, humans make mistakes, and sometimes if you're referencing too many different references, it gets a little funky. The shoes are a bit odd, as in, it looks like there were two different references for the shoes. It looks like the reference that was used for the right shoe was not the same reference that was used for the left shoe. They just look like two different shoes. Some inconsistencies that this commenter points out. Here on the red leather, which is where like the shoelace is going in, there's a white stripe that is drawn in on the right shoe that isn't featured on the left shoe. Secondly, the shading for the laces are actually different. On the left shoe, it's really hard to see, but there's a faint gray highlight. Each lace has it, and it's not present on the right shoe. Maybe they forgot the highlights, possibly. Here, they have oddities. This white part of the shoe I find interesting, right? Because like that should be the tongue of the shoe behind all the black laces. But here, you can see the white part actually goes into an eyelet on the shoe, as if it's a shoelace that they forgot to color. So maybe it's a shoelace that OP forgot to color black, which is why it ended up like that. But then the way the line art is done makes it look like this is the top of the laces because it crisscrosses like that, you know? I hope that's making sense. Like if the top of your shoelace were to end in one solid stripe like that, that basically would be as if you're wearing a Velcro shoe. It would crisscross at the top or have a knot. Maybe some artists just don't draw the knot to make it look cleaner. So I'm guessing that's a design choice. The toe of the shoe also looks like different. Like this one's very boxy. You can see here, it's boxy like this. This one is very rounded. One thing that they didn't mention, but that I noticed that's also different is this is a Nike swoosh here, But then if you look here, right, if it was a Nike swoosh, it wouldn't connect with the red that you see here where the laces are going into, right? There's this white gap here, the white leather visible between the black swoosh and the red stripage of the shoe. So maybe the artist just like got a little confused because sometimes when you're drawing like different foot perspectives, maybe this is their first time drawing a Nike shoe. They just got a little confused. But to me, this one's a bit of a gray area because AI also does the thing where it's like it tries to make the same thing, but because it's AI, it just makes it a little different. If you know what I mean, AI would be like, oh, I'm trying to make two of the same Nike shoe, and it's obviously not the same because it's AI. I mean, here we have like, again, you see the red stripe here. You see how there's a seam? There's a seam here, and there's a smaller panel between where the eyelets are and the actual like toe of the shoe. And that seam is not present on this shoe either. Not to mention, it's also not the same amount of laces. Here we have one, two, three, 4 rows of laces. And on this shoe, we have one, two, three, four, 5. Possibly this white one was supposed to be another shoelace they forgot to color in, maybe. Right? So, like, is this human error where somebody just got confused and they just aren't good at drawing shoes? Or is this like AI messing it up? And so the artist adds, dang, analyze thoroughly like this. Honestly, sis, I suck at drawing shoes. If I can be honest, I drew the laces randomly because I didn't expect that it would be checked this detailed. I can't force you to believe me, but I'll just share the working file. So here they show their art process. This looks like Photoshop that they draw in. So here you can see the sketch for the shoe, which like, okay, I'm trying to believe this artist. Like I genuinely am trying to believe that it's like human error. What I'm confused about is just why the laces are drawn this way. Do you see this? Like there's like one lace drawn like this and the other lace stacked on top. Like if you own a pair of shoes that have laces, you would know that it doesn't lace like that unless you intentionally laced the bottom half of your shoe differently than the top half of your shoe. And OP says they use reference photos. So if you look at the reference photos, you would see it's not laced like this. So I don't know. Just because I'm just so confused as to why the lacing for the shoe on the right shoe and the left shoe are just so different. But yeah, so then they colored in the bottom chunk of the laces. Right, we have color and shade, which again, like benefit of doubt, sometimes you just forget to color things in. So that's just like maybe the top was supposed to be another shoelace they forgot to color in. Yeah, now we see the rendering. And the person who originally made like the mock-up of the shoe, they add, you guys are really naive. Look at my eyes and tell me they have the same line art. I already said strongly, where's the proof they drew the line art without tracing? Then made the proof. The liner itself is different. Funny how people immediately curse and run away when I'm asleep, but it's easy for me to spot it right away. So they add some more mock-ups on the shoe, and then again, like I can't read Indonesian, so it's not like translating properly, obviously, because it's Google Translate. It's not gonna get everything right. But one thing they highlight here is like there is this like divot here in the leather that you can see on the side here. You see this divot? Again, maybe it's human error. I feel like normally you just draw it with one brush stroke. And then they highlight here though that there's no divot in the final rendered version, which would indicate if this is the line art that was used in the final, that this line art is not the same as the shoe liner, because where did the divot go? Maybe they caught it later and they fixed it. And then this is another graphic that was mocked up by the commenter, but they kind of added that reference photo. And again, one thing to add is that there was a second reference photo for another shoe that is not available anymore. This is like a broken translation, but we do have this reference photo here and they're highlighting like how are the laces like so different. And they add, it doesn't explain why the left shoelace can be that much shorter than the reference, which this I actually didn't notice before, but the toe of the shoe on the left foot, it doesn't go anywhere near as far down on the shoe as this one does. Maybe again, it's because OP sucks at drawing shoes and their perspective is bad. But I would argue these shoes are rendered well. But yeah, I'm saying like it's missing 1 row of laces. One final thing that's really interesting is that the 2 shoes, again, maybe it's because OP is just not good at drawing shoes, right? Like most definitely. These ones look like they're high tops, but these ones, they look like they're low tops with the way they're cut from the perspective. Like here, you can see the tongue sticks out a lot taller than the rest of the shoe on the side, whereas here, the tongue and the sides are about the same height. And this likely could be a theory too, a sleeper theory, is that B is a shoe that was professionally made, aka possibly traced off of a reference image. And A is their interpretation of the shoe at a slightly different angle to match their character, which is why it's struggling a bit more than the way shoe B looks. And personally, while I want to give benefit of doubt to that, like, okay, maybe you just forgot to color in the lace, whatever, there's others where it's like, okay, well, if you were to like try to copy it to the best of your ability and turn the shoe, there's just some things that were missed. Like you made it a low top. You curved the toe instead of like boxing it in here. This shoe is actually flatter than this shoe. This one has a very prominent Nike swoosh that would not exist on this shoe. There's not the same number of laces. There also is this like extra element that was added. Like it's just a bunch that was changed. But in defense of the shoe, another artist comes out and says, "This case makes me think the two sides are very funny. This is a neutral discussion. I'm not taking sides. Let's talk about the shoe incident and break it down together." They're highlighting stuff about the shoes and adding over exaggeration. What I believe happened here. Overanalyzing, overstressing, and paranoia towards AI. And they add, this is something I, as an experienced artist, would like to argue. The sketches to the final are the same. Liner and sketches are bound to be different at some point, just like the sketch in the final piece. So they're adding, you can see the translation here. What I see is a case of dependency of vector lines, which leads to shallow understanding of line weight. So they're highlighting that, the laces being a little bit choppy is like a human error. And they add, this leads to a shallow understanding of line weight usage. It's a very normal human error and dependency, like the same face syndrome, whatever. So now, before we visit more of that, the second point of contention with the artwork that was presented as the example of, oh, this is AI, are the books on the bookshelf. So a commenter says, no matter how good the tracing is in AI, you can't change the fact that these are non-human made mistakes. These are only mistakes AI could make. The rendering on the shoelaces, the rendering on the shading is way different. The color choices are different too. And the books here tell me they're human made. So here we have some books on a bookshelf. They could just be one bro drawing books. Benefit of doubt, it could just be somebody who's not the best at perspective, because perspective is hard, right? Trying their best to get things to fit on a shelf. Getting some books drawn, the perspective is maybe a little bit, a little teeny bit off, but it happens to everybody. One big thing that I find a bit interesting is that there's like a bit of like lines kind of appearing. You see here, there's like a line coming up from the book. There's a line coming from across the book, and there's a line coming from down here. Just interesting. It could be extra brushstrokes left in by the artist. It could also be artifacts. We have the spines of the books, right, with these lines, which you will find in like leather-bound books, etc. And then we have some like indented textures here that you can see here, like indented texture, indented texture. These are textures that you can find with AI that you would see. It's kind of like really textured and also kind of funky at the same time. But maybe it's a brush the artist used. So the commenter continues to theorize that OP draws part of the image and then feeds it to AI to complete. And then somebody was like, oh, can you please elaborate like what's wrong actually with this image? And the commenter adds, it's not about perspective, but the rendering. Clearly, the rendering of the book has a lot more errors that could only be made with AI, especially how it's open just a tiny bit and there's this unclear shading. The shape of the book is unclear and the colors are all mixed up. So they're highlighting how the books all look like they're pointing in different directions. Other aspects like here, this is the red book's cover, but somehow the right side is a lot taller than the left. Now, this could be because of the book behind it, right? But it also does kind of look like it's bleeding into the book behind it. I don't think the perspective is actually the issue. Perspective is hard. Drawing a bunch of books together, it's hard. You muck it up sometimes. I just think the texture on the spine of the book is very interesting. I'm just curious like what brush was used to make this. Or maybe sometimes what people have done is they'll take like a photograph and then like blur it a little bit and then use that as the texture. So maybe that was what happened here. Another commenter responds, I'll give permission while sharing my take from my analysis. I'm checking it out in the part of his work in progress video. And so far, my hunch is if we're talking about the rendering area of the book, I'd rather give artists the benefit of doubt first, considering not everybody can pull off the digital painting style or when they're experimenting. This is part of the work in progress, and like maybe it was just an over render that led to this. And then regarding some details that aren't present on the book, like the red book has this like vertical texture to it that, OP adds. Maybe it was like in a hidden layer we didn't get to see. But the original commenter says, I still can't fathom the overly detailed render of the background in that book, which is basically a background, compared to the main object itself. Look at the character's head. Because cases like that are plenty, with the background more detailed than the character. But usually it's just slapping on an available background asset from the internet. And that's what you can see here because this is part of the character. We can see the rendering style is very different. The whole background is very like semi-realistic and the character is a lot more like cartoony in the rendering style. Not a bad thing. No one's saying you can't mix medias or mix rendering styles, but it could be a case of like somebody yoinked an AI background book asset, slapped it in the background, and then just drew the character on top. And the commenter continues, the problem is they're lying when they say he did tracing, because even the line art is vastly different from the character's line art, let alone the rendering. I'd be more okay if he said, oh, I slapped things together from the internet and didn't realize it was AI, but he lied about drawing or tracing it himself. Just compare the rendering of that book with other objects. Sure, there could be rendering errors, but a rendering style difference that extreme and the rendering errors are also so distinctly AI-like should be enough to prove it. So the original person who was defending the shoes also has like, benefit of doubt for the books and also the plant as well, because that was another point of contention. And they added, this is unfortunate because I do see a pattern where this artist liquefies texture and or tries to implement texture to books and plants. The artist simply needs more references, to be honest. and don't use AI images as a reference. So they're highlighting this is probably overanalysis regarding the plants, compressed quality, likely reference from an AI image, and other elements. There's like lines in it, maybe leftovers from sketches. Yeah, possibly. Regarding the plant, I don't think the liner or anything of the plant to me looks AI. It just looks like somebody trying their best to draw plants. But then we have a final piece from this artist that a lot of people are also up in the air about. And it's this one about two guys, and one's in a maid outfit and one is wearing a white button down with like a red tie. And this commenter says, if it's not AI, then what the heck, man? So easily fooled. And just because somebody can draw doesn't mean they won't use AI. And again, this is the image in question. And again, also this image has like a very heavy grain on it with like kind of like a crunchy paper texture over it, like, like a little confetti paper texture. So unfortunately, that's also not helping because like, a lot of people are like, oh, like there's artifacts, so it makes it look AI. That is a texture that was added over this. So that on its own, that's just the texture. So another person took that image and analyzed it. So they've highlighted a bunch of elements off this piece. So they write, one, the placement of the frills is weird. There should be no gaps and it should be integrated in the apron. The left side is correct, but why is the right one like that? This one to me again is like a big one where it's kind of like this is odd because again, possibly it's human error and you like messed up, but this one it's again like the shoe where it's kind of like it's so close, but yet also so far that like maybe, sometimes people miss things, but like it's just a bit odd to miss. Like sometimes, somebody might forget to draw it entirely on the right side and only draw it on the left and completely forget. Or like the shoelace, maybe you just forgot to color in the top lace. That happens. But like now we have this, right? Where like the lace is attached on the left side. So it was drawn correctly on the left. And then on the right, it's attached to the seam of the black shirt instead of actually to the apron, which you can see here. This is a photo of how it would look like. So point two, the whites on the bottom left are missing while the ones on the right are. Here we have this one, right? Look at the black shirt. On the black shirt on the right side, there is a white trim and it's completely missing on the left side. Number three, they're highlighting that there should be a puff on the right sleeve that is missing on the left. This one, I'm giving some benefit of doubt to, like possibly it's because the arm is up, it's not puffing as much. Well, actually, it would puff more if your arm is up, but maybe because it's like hidden behind the other person that maybe it's not visible. Then they highlight number four, the fingers are weird. Even though in the old account he could draw fingers. Why is this weird? It's hard to see, but if you look here, right, it's because there's two fingers visible and then there's a thumb and there's like a curve below it. And they're like trying to fix it. Maybe you add one more finger and you do this. Everybody has a different art style, right? Because like it looks like it's like a hand holding a photo. So, you might hold it with like one finger like this. Maybe in this image, the reason we only see two fingers down here is because they're holding it with two fingers in the back like this. It would look something a little closer to this. I'm trying to give benefit of doubt. This bump could be like a missing third finger that's collapsed here. It could be like the fat of your pinky, your like palm of your hand pushing down when your pinky goes down. They also add number five. Why does only one thumb have a nail? Because we can see this bottom hand here, there is a thumbnail and there's no thumbnail on the top hand. Again, maybe they forgot, but I'm just saying like at this point for this image specifically, there's like so many elements that were forgotten that it's kind of like, what are the odds you forgot all of this in the same image? And there's two shoes with like that are also completely looking different. And there's like drawings that have very inconsistent amount of fingers with one hand with five, one hand with four. Like the oddities are kind of adding up where it's like, oh, it's getting a little interesting. Same as point five. Why is there only one bracelet? Right? You can't see a bracelet here. Then maybe it's because it's bracelet, it's only on one hand. This one again, benefit of doubt, right? Probably just that. And then seven, they add, why is the liner of the photo in the Polaroid different from the liner actually visible here? Because I mean, yeah, right? Like either you draw like a chibi version or like maybe the logical version is you just take this liner, you make it smaller and then you stick it here because. Another thing that people are pointing out, which I can't see for myself because I believe it's written in Malay. Other people were pointing out the fact that there's a fair amount of typos in the graphic actually, and that the artist basically has a previous account where they've posted NSFW and there's like no typos on that account, and that people thought that was also suspect. Now, going back to this other person that was definitely, trying to give some benefit of doubt here, and I just wanted to throw this in, because to hear both sides, right? This person writes, there are some arguments I'd like to put here too regarding this image. Both number one and two are what I can't explain and what are likely AI generated mistakes. One being the frill being attached to the seam of the shirt rather than the actual apron. And then number two, the white trim only being present on one arm. And they add number three, the puffs, it's probably like they were trying their best to do a sleeve puff. And then the six, the wrist cuff, maybe they forgot the other wrist cuff and it's a human error. And that number seven, the line art being different is like over analyzing, self-fulfilling prophecy. You're looking for errors. That's why it looks like that. The commenter also highlighted that, 4 and 5, the fingers and the thumbnails may be overanalyzing. I personally think the forgotten thumbnail is interesting. To me, this is more of in line with like a 1 or 2 like suspect where it's kind of like, oh, huh. Because typically if somebody draws fingernails, they put it on every single visible finger. And if they don't, they just don't draw it entirely. And this artist actually tends to not draw fingernails. Most of their artworks of this style do not have fingernails. It's literally just this one. That's why it's kind of like, wait, that's just maybe they really wanted to draw a thumbnail for just this one, even though they're literally in the same piece. And this commenter highlights the OC theft in the first place of this bull character is what led them to basically be overanalyzed. And basically, if this I didn't notice, so after seeing this, I'm more like, oh, this is like not really cool. Is because they drew the bull icon and they actually named it themselves. So they gave it like a name, like Willy Moo Shakes a Lot Bull. That's basically like you're taking somebody else's OC and renaming it. So when I first saw this, I was like, oh, maybe they just really like the bull and they just wanted to like simplify into an iconography. It's like, oh, I like the bull pose, whatever. I'm just, maybe my icon style is different enough that it's like fine. Then they're also like naming the OC. It's clearly somebody else's design. That gets a little weird. And regarding the maid one, another person adds, this is so much more of a refreshing breakdown of the situation. In response to the commenter giving benefit of doubts, they're adding, I'd like to add, I haven't seen anybody try to do a noise analysis to check for AI usage. And they added, I did unfortunately find the Cabanon maid image is either AI generated or AI enhanced. And this is the noise image, their image forensics, where you can see there's some noise in the background. Now, some people say that this is like JPEG compression. Possibly. Maybe it's because of the confetti and the grain that is added to this that it caused it to look like this. But in other examples, when people were tested it, even with JPEG compression, like grain, it still doesn't quite look like this. But again, this is another like take it with a grain of salt type thing. Possibly it's because there is this, again, like I said, this like confetti texture in the back. And the commenter adds, I've been searching for this image. Thank you. I do believe this one at least has been finalized or edited with AI or refined with AI, like the Ghibli filter. And then another person had made another kind of like breakdown graphic where they were highlighting more of OP's artwork. They titled this Points of Oddity, and they write, 1, how many fingers does he actually have? From what I've seen in this art style, he has 4 fingers, but sometimes he only has 3. This happened many times. As you can see in the same drawing, you see 3 fingers on one hand, 4 on the hand that's holding milk. Again, benefit of doubt, maybe it's like when he's holding your fist up like this, if you tilt it back a little bit, you end up only having 3 fingers visible in this pose. But we have another example here. This one I feel like is harder to explain because from this angle, you would actually see all fingers. Here we have another one, 5 on one hand, 4 on the other. This character, the same character, what looks like it's the same person, right? 5 fingers on this hand. Another point was made about character inconsistency. Maybe it's one where like over time after drawing the same character, you just change the character a little bit happens. They're also highlighting how the way the hand is holding the milk carton looks odd. You would assume maybe the thumb is visible, maybe. The big takeaway for me from this one is again the finger count inconsistency. I'm trying to give some benefit of doubt. And some of you guys might find me annoying for this many benefits of doubts at this point. But, right, like maybe it's because it's a more like iconography style. So like maybe it would look too muddy to draw 5 fingers visible in this hand. It is the hand in the background, right? So like maybe they, for choice reasons, dropped one of the fingers so that the lines are more clear. It's one of those where like, I want to believe you drew it. I really do. But like, how do you have a whole bunch of images where the same guy has like different numbers of fingers in multiple drawings? If it happens like once or twice, happens. Accidents happen. Human mistakes happen all the time. One could be perspective, but all 3, a little harder to believe. So the artist came out with their statement, writing, hi guys, I'm sorry for everything that happened earlier. I want to clarify the situation. I'll start by sharing more work in progress videos to be transparent. And I know I can't convince everyone, but I hope showing my progress will help. For the bull drawing, I did take a reference from Eclipse's art. I'm a big fan of his work and was inspired by the pose and design from his artwork. He has been a huge inspo for me for a long time. For this style, it's because I want to make more flat icon styles like Asobi's style. And this is an example of Asobi's work. Hagu added, I deleted my previous post because after looking at the drawings again, I felt they looked too stiff. Those are drawings from last year, so I thought to redesign them to look fresh. And for these, the plant and the books, I usually trace from real life Google objects, and because it's only for the background, I mess up a lot and it doesn't look perfect. And they highlight an art process where they show themselves drawing the lion character, and we can see them complete the sketch for this lion character here. A lot of people in the comments have been really positive. They're like, oh, like you go show them, I'm here to support you. Like, why are people always jealous? Your art looks really good. And there's other people that are kind of like, hey, well, I want to see you live stream your process and that this still doesn't explain the shoes and stuff like that. A point that I saw somebody make, and I think this one honestly is the one that possibly could be the closest to reality for what's happening here. The fact that this person is probably referencing AI, knowingly or unknowingly. And this commenter says, what's funnier is that the artist is using AI generated images as a reference, and this is fatal for any artist. And this person is referring to the vector shoe that the artist provided as one of their shoe references, possibly allegedly. I just find it interesting. It was uploaded under the title, a picture of a shoe with the word W written on it. I don't know where the W is on the shoe actually. But going on the page of the person who posted that image onto Free Pick to license, they've got images like this is giving AI. So the likelihood of this shoe being AI because it is posted by this person that has posted alleged AI images probably pretty high, which again, if you're referencing AI images, it's gonna cause your art to look AI. That's what you're referencing. Regarding some of the other pieces, I do think a fair amount of the pieces, they do look like Bro drew it, you know, with the one exception of the maid one. We have an update and the artist put out even more explanations for their art process. So the artist quote retweeted the person who is basically, you know, playing neutral, leaving benefit of doubt comments, writing, I want to sincerely thank you for this post. I learned many valuable points from it, as well as the main mistake. I like to clarify the mistakes in my drawings that people have been questioning. Sorry I haven't responded to many questions. I read them but wanted to compile it into a thread first while finding the right time to take photos and videos about it. We'll start with the bull. I believe this is the most serious issue. It was my mistake to reference the original design too heavily. I've contacted the artist to apologize and discuss giving revenue from the merch that used the design. So this was their apology to Eclipse, and they want to share some revenue for their tote bag sales. And this was the tote bag that was being sold. So for the shoes, they added that the color fold layer is placed on top because some layers use the multiply feature. So they add the mistake they made was referencing an AI generated image for the object. They thought it was safer since it wasn't taken from another artist, but they realized that was a mistake and it distorted the object they were trying to draw, the shoes. And they added that they may have used more AI generated references for objects like plants or backgrounds since they normally take images from Google without checking the source. And for textures, they take images from FreePic and liquefy it. So here they're showing they take a corduroy pattern, and then this was them after liquefying it. So they add, regarding the plant in the book, they did digital painting inside the object so it would have more depth, and they painted it all on a single layer. And they added that their fatal mistake is the line art style, which happens to look a lot like AI styles. This is their line art style, some AI looking pieces. I want to add for this specifically is that because AI steals art styles from real artists, like a lot of artists unfortunately have an AI art style. And it's a chicken and the egg, right? But the artist came first. AI just stole from them. In this specific case, if you count the timeline, if you look at this artist's like previous work, their previous work looks a lot different from their NSFW accounts. They recently kind of transitioned into this art style. I'm only saying this because I don't think AI stole from them specifically. In the case of this art style, just due to timelines. So they add, this is how I convert my sketches into vector line art using Adobe Illustrator's pen tool. The clean vector lines do make it look similar to AI's line work. And they add that they're going to avoid using the style ever again. So they basically kind of just go through showing themselves using Illustrator. So about the maid design, they add that they reference a dress like this with the puff sleeves. The left sleeve looks attached to the apron because of the angle. Forgot to add the white color on the left arm, my mistake. Minor mistakes like misaligned lines because I rushed it while focusing on the catalog. So this was the reference they used for the sleeves. And they're saying that the left sleeve looks attached because of the angle. This one, okay, I want to believe them. You know, like other things, you know, you forgot the stripe. That's fine, right? Like maybe just forgot to color it in again, etc. But then like this is not this. You know what I mean? Like no angle would make this seem attached to the apron, but this one this far away. Like the hand, yeah, this one, you know, it's like two fingers behind the postcard, which is why it looks the way it looks. They said they forgot to add the nail here, and that for the line art in the actual photo, they changed some elements because it looked too crammed, which is like fair, right? It happens. And they added the grain and textures in their images are also from FreePic. And they add that a big issue is inconsistency. They started experimenting with the style last year and haven't made proper reference sheets, which led to finger inconsistency, line inconsistency, and details. You know, with like 5 fingers in this piece, and then here, everybody has 4 fingers. Actually, what's happening with the fingernail here too? There's like 1 fingernail, no fingernail, a dot for a fingernail. And then this person's ear is also different from this ear, which is different from this ear. See, here's the thing is like, I want to believe them and I want to understand that like, yeah, you know, if you don't make a rough sheet, sometimes you just like change up the way you draw things just cause, you know? But like, there's so many inconsistencies within like the same art piece. Like this is the same piece. Even for the same guy, there's 1 fingernail, no fingernail, half a fingernail. All the ears are drawn differently. all on the same piece. That's why it's, like, hard for me, at least, to kind of fully believe it because it's like, normally, if you have inconsistencies, maybe a piece you made 2 months ago, the AR rendering might look different than, like, today because you decided you like this way better. And so they add with the polar bear character where one hand has 4, one hand has 5. It's because they wanted to make the hand look like it's a higher angle, so they added, this as a reference. And they added that it looks questionable and they rushed it. They basically say again that they're gonna change their art style because it's too similar to the AI art style, that they used to draw buff furries and they've been experimenting, and that they did use AI references for some of the objects and backgrounds. And they removed elements that caused confusion. They also added that if anybody purchased from them but felt unsatisfied, they will offer a refund and that they're going to withdraw from the convention. So, what are your thoughts about the situation? And again, please don't send hate to anybody. Please don't send hate to this artist or anybody else. This isn't a case where somebody used AI references without knowing because they acknowledged they knew that they were referencing AI, but that they chose to do it anyways because they thought, well, it's not like a human made it, so that, I'm not maybe encroaching on an artist. So it's very interesting. Some people think it's like an innocent mistake. Other people think that this person is not fully being transparent and that more AI was used without them explicitly stating it. And other people think that this is completely unnecessary and that it was just a little thing that somebody did and that it's blown completely out of proportion. I'm curious about your thoughts at the end of the day because this whole situation is just so, so, so messy. But with that, if you like this video, I appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Don't forget to check me out on Etsy. I have digital art there. I have a coffee with free resources. And I stream on Twitch 3 days a week, Mondays and Saturdays at 6 p.m. and Thursdays at 7:30. So I hope to catch y'all there or in another video. Peace.